Hi, Beth. Hi, Wynne.
Hi, good morning, Vicki. Happy New
It's
Year.
it's so good to see you guys. It's so much fun to be on screen and just laughing and enjoying life across the country.
Yes, and good
Oh,
to see we're making it through the holidays, and it's going to
Mm-hmm.
be a new year when everybody sees this, so that means we're still here.
Yes.
absolutely. Which really is, check the box.
Right,
Mm-hmm.
Yay?
right.
Yeah, absolutely. But Wynne and I, Beth, could not have planned for a better New Year kickoff guest than
Mm-hmm.
you. And we
Mm-hmm.
love that you're in full celebration mode with a Happy New Year tiara on. Is that what we
Mm-hmm.
see? Oh,
Yes, yes.
I love it.
Well,
So
glad to
good.
be here.
Yeah, I know. But the topic du jour, you wrote a post last year, a couple months back at this point, maybe just a month, but it was all about soup.
Hmm.
And it was like a lightning rod. I think soup is one of those things where I don't know anyone who doesn't love it. There are so many different varieties. And right before we started recording, we were, the three of us, we'll be honest, we were giggling about a lot of things. But you confessed to us that your post that really inspired this podcast called, Good Soup was like the 21st post you've ever written about soup. Is that true?
This is true, and I didn't realize I had a soup problem until I went back and looked. You can hit old posts and type in, and there
Yeah.
were 21. And it seems to be something I come back to often. It's one of my favorite foods. I have it all year round. I don't care if it's hot, cold, because for a couple of reasons. I love it because it's a mixture of things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it's always different. And looking at some of the posts, and it's a multicultural thing. Everybody has some form of soup.
Right.
And
Mm-hmm.
so, in looking back at my posts, some were very serious, like I was ill and this soup helped me feel better. Or
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
my favorite soup as a child, I called seashell soup. And my mom would make it, and they were just seashell noodles with butter and then a tiny bit of chicken broth. And I thought it was like
Hmm.
magical soup. And
Aw.
then when I was an adult, I said, "What's the secret recipe for seashell soup?" And she said, "Well, it's noodles and butter." And it's, I thought it was a family secret. So, but it was comforting as a child. I still make it
Mhm.
sometimes. But since then, some of my soup posts have been soup mishaps, because like I say, I like to improv and put different things in. Um,
Yep.
one was a soup that took 4 days to make because I kept adding things trying to make it better. It was horrible. I had beans that took like 24 hours to soften, and
Yeah.
it had no flavor, so I added in some herbs. It was still awful. I put in tomatoes. I kept going. I kept going. And finally, on the fourth day, I had to put it in the refrigerator at night and try again. I was gonna make this soup good. And on the fourth day, it turned into sort of a thick porridge almost because of something I added. And so I actually would like cut off a chunk of it and like fry it for breakfast. I mean, with
Wait, wait,
breakfast,
wait, wait, wait. You
it
cut
turned
off
into
a
a
chunk of
solid.
soup?
It turned into a solid on the fourth day. So I just decided I'll heat it up by like frying a square of it because it was healthy, but it just was not liquid anymore. So that was a soup mishap. But you know, um, and I try like all kinds of recipes. And the one that day was I just used whatever was in my kitchen
Yeah.
and just kept adding ingredients and it wasn't getting better. I should have surrendered, but I was
I,
determined.
I
I was gonna
love the
eat
determination of
food,
that.
even if it was solid. So
Never
That is
in my
great.
life have I heard someone talk about frying the soup. And in my head, I'm like, is this how Spam was created? We just keep adding stuff together.
Mhm.
But I gotta admit, it doesn't sound appetizing. But I'm trusting you. But I'm
yeah,
like,
it wasn't my best, but I was determined I was gonna eat it. So because there were so
gosh.
many ingredients in it at that point,
Yeah,
Oh
So
it
my
was all
gosh.
you put it all in the pot.
I had one
Yeah.
also, I was making soup and then
Mhm.
I was working on a collage, like an art project in
Oh,
another room, and it was cooking down and I smelled something. I went in and the pan, was down to like nothing.
Oh,
It was very, very hot.
oh,
So I took it and I used hot pads and put it in the sink. And it
yeah.
was so hot when I tried to pull out the sink, it pulled the ceramic out in a circle.
Oh no.
It must have been like when you're blowing glass, like that heat. It was
Yeah.
so hot. So, um, and then it was the epic of trying to clean that pan. So I just
Mm.
threw it away, the pan finally. But
Wow.
most soups turn out to be good and,
Mhm.
comforting. And we have soup parties sometimes with my friends where everybody
Aw.
brings a soup.
Mhm.
And then the host would just have like bread and drinks, and it's
Yeah.
really nice. And everybody has kind of a signature soup that they like
Mhm.
to make, and
Mm-hmm.
so it turns out really nice. So
That's great.
Wow.
Vicki and I early on had a bonding moment because I was eating chili for breakfast, and she's like, "Oh,
oh,
I love chili for
see,
breakfast."
right.
Yeah.
And in
I
fact,
Yeah.
do like other foods for breakfast. Yeah,
yeah. Vicki, you just wrote a post about chili for breakfast.
I love savory for
I
breakfast.
do too.
I'm a sugar fiend, and if I start with like traditional, you know, have pancakes or waffles or something
Right,
like that, it just my furnace, metabolism wise
right,
just goes more. But if I
right.
eat something a little bit more savory, and I will confess, I don't like eggs. So something like chili is really
Mhm.
good, but I'm gonna tell on Wynne. Sorry, you guys have me giggling so much. Never in my life have I written down she had to slice the soup. So I'm having a little bit of a hard time
Just when you think
recovering.
you've
I
heard
just
it
am.
all.
But Wynne, I'm gonna tell on you.
Mm.
We not only do we like soup at any time, Beth, but Wynne not that long ago was on a little family vacation and she had made soup and had taken it along, and there was some leftover. And one of her fellow travelers had the gall to ask whether or not the leftovers could be his. And Wynne the headline news, like you won't believe what he said. He wanted to keep the chili. Yeah, like how dare he?
I
You
know.
know?
Well,
I
and I
know,
do
but it's
think
good.
most soups taste better left over. They've taken on more
Yes.
of the flavor and the spices kicked up a notch.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Especially anything tomato based, I feel like is
Yeah,
just,
yeah,
better if
Mhm.
it can hang out.
right.
But you're cracking us up so much, so much. But across those like 20 something posts,
Hmm.
what you described is that, it was, the laughing, the crying, the good, the bad, but still to look back at blog posts and to know that 20 times, more than 20 times, you wrote about that really tells us as we think about like New Year and self-care and, little mini rituals that we can have that just fill us up both literally, but also kind of are like a soul boost. Soup
Right,
must do that for you. It just
right.
must,
Well, and
yes?
I think it's even the process. Like some people like to make bread, and that process for
Oh,
me is soup.
Mhm.
And I'll often just gather whatever I have here and try to make something, or I've had something somewhere and I'll try to recreate it. It's just, I like the process and seeing it come together in like this delicious mixture.
yeah.
I know we've talked about quotes before, and it's the same thing with
Yes.
quotes. I looked up who I used for quotes for some of my soup posts
Hmm.
because I like to, just like mixing soup, I like to mix a person that you wouldn't expect their quote to go with what the post is.
Yeah.
But some of the people I had were Kate DiCamillo, Alice
Mhm.
Walker,
Oh,
Beethoven,
Oh,
Victor
wait.
Hugo.
What do you have that quote, the Beethoven quote in front of you?
I can look that up for you. Yeah.
oh no,
Okay.
I have it.
Okay.
I have it because I love it. I think it was in
Oh,
this
only pure
post.
Oh
in
yeah.
heart. That one? Yeah.
Yeah. Only the pure in heart can make good soup.
I mean, so that's great. Darwin, I have a Darwin
Hmm.
quote. H.L. Mencken,
Wow.
and let's see, Adam Rickman, Julia Child, of course,
Mm.
Christian Dior.
Mm.
So it's like
Wow.
many people have weighed in on
Right.
something to do with soup, or they use it as a metaphor for
Hmm.
something.
Hmm.
Yeah.
You take this
Yeah.
and that, and then you make this
Oh
thing.
my
Well,
gosh.
I gotta say about that Beethoven quote, which is gotten me fascinated. An orchestra and soup are a little bit alike.
Absolutely.
I mean, making
Yes.
Oh,
music and
yeah.
soup, but you put a
Yes.
lot into the
Yeah.
pot there.
Right.
I like it.
And
Yeah. And I
everything
bet,
plays its part.
right. They thought of like making the soup. You put all
Mhm,
these sounds together and yeah.
Mm-hmm.
mhm,
So,
Mm-hmm.
mhm,
I saw a spoof the other day on Instagram, some young man who was pretending to be Stanley Tucci,
mhm,
who does his
oh,
little,
okay.
if you've
Yes.
seen him where he
Yes.
does his, are we rolling? Right? And he
Right.
does his little, cooking segments. But apparently one of his favorite soups is pasta fagioli.
mhm.
Mhm.
And this kid who was impersonating him, it was quite hilarious, was demonstrating how to make his soup. And I realized that's my favorite soup. I love that even
That
more
is
than
a good one.
chili.
Mm,
Oh,
Hmm.
wow. Okay.
So
That's
good. But it's
excellent.
the tomato and,
Hmm.
the spices and some noodles. I'm
Right.
hungry
And
now.
those kind of soups, they would call them peasant soups because
mhm,
Yes.
you added chunks of bread to make it go further to feed your family.
Mm-hmm.
But I seem to love those peasant foods.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ditto.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, savory.
Right.
They feel curative.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Like,
And you're full, like not only like your stomach, but like your body, your spirit is kind of fulfilled,
mhm,
like warm soup and,
mhm,
you know,
Yeah. Well, and I
so.
think for people that try not to eat a lot of meat,
Mhm.
it gets a little tiresome sometimes with salads. And I'm not a big salad person, but a
Right.
a big bowl of soup,
Right.
because like you said, Beth, although it sounds like you really cooked your beans and lentils down quite a bit with your soup slicing. But I mean,
It could be a
we've all been there.
plaster for brick too, like
Yeah.
mortar at one
Oh
point.
my
The next
gosh,
day,
right?
day five.
Oh my gosh. But that's what makes it filling. And so I think, beans and
Right.
lentils, legumes and soup, it gives you that satisfying feeling where, maybe your mom's seashell soup, which I
Right.
have to really think hard to say
Yes.
that without tripping over myself. That was probably light and for a little girl with an upset tummy or, trying to feel
Right.
better. But those heartier soups,
Hmm.
like you said, there's so much variety where it's a meal.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah.
Gosh, I
And
love it.
I love the idea. I mean, you talked about your soup potluck where everybody brings a soup. I mean,
Hmm.
Hmm.
it's a great metaphor for community as well. And then you describe the
Yeah.
kind of community event
Yeah.
of soup.
You're right. Well, I think it used to be, remember, everybody would bring like way back, like
Hmm.
their casserole or their jello salad or whatever
Yeah.
it's called. I love
Yeah.
food. It's fascinating, but
Yeah.
I don't want to eat most of it. But everybody, like Aunt Martha had her carrot raisin clear jello that she was going to bring every time or whatever. And so that's kind of like that with soup. Like you will
Hmm.
see within however small or large your group is, kind of you learn a little bit about that person by their
Hmm.
soup.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
When I loved your mention of kind of the multiculturalness of it, that
Mm,
really every culture,
mm,
across, I think, so many different geographic locations and cultures, soup is something that we share, and or porridge if it's a little
mhm.
thicker, or the stews, but it's use what you
Yeah,
have, be
right,
Hmm.
thrifty,
right,
take care of your family. So a lot of those, I think, intentions, ring true going into the new year and trying to just be thoughtful about consumerism
Hmm.
and, using what we have. It makes
right,
sense.
right. When I think like one of my posts was about when I was a single mother of three daughters and we did not have much money. I was going to school and working, and so I would make up names for my foods to make them sound more fun. Like the Jewel of the Sea, which was like tuna casserole with potato chips. But
Mm,
all of those casseroles that I made and named had soup. And
Hmm.
the base was like the Campbell's soup for
yeah.
every recipe.
Yeah.
And so when they got married, I gave them the like little recipe cards with like their soup
Yeah.
casserole that
Oh,
we
that's
had. Like, I know you're gonna make this, it's amazing. But even that was like soup kind of like made it go further for us and
Hmm.
Yeah.
it made it into a meal.
Yeah.
Yeah. You
Yeah.
know,
Absolutely.
Nikki Giovanni just passed away. She was a
Oh, yes.
poet from Virginia Tech, I think was.
Mhm.
And she had this wonderful podcast I heard about her in a couple of years ago. And she talked about her grandmother made use of everything that came into the kitchen. I mean,
Yeah.
she never threw anything away. And that's
Right.
Yeah.
often what we do with our soups, right?
Right.
We take the bits and bobs that we have lying around and we make
Right.
something good about it. And it is the metaphor for writing is so powerful there.
Mm-hmm.
It's
It is.
true. Like you,
Yeah.
and if you think about anything you write, comes from either a life experience, like you've heard a
Mhm.
word, or you've seen a situation, or you've lived that
Mhm.
situation, or someone told you a story, and that's all comes together in your
Mhm.
writing
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm.
because those are
Huh.
Yeah,
all saved in there somewhere.
exactly.
Yeah.
We're making use of
No.
our experience.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's so good.
So
I'm
do
also
you
still thinking about um, what you said about like there's poetry in all of what you just said, even,
Yes.
right? About who you are and how you choose to live your life. Sorry, Wynne.
Yeah, no, it's good. I was just going to ask if Beth has a favorite soup for the new year.
Well, okay. Yes, I do. Like
Okay,
one
good.
that I, instead
Ooh.
of seashell soup now as an adult, I usually get the Greek like lemon chicken
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
soup. We have a lot in
Mm-hmm.
Detroit area. Coney Island restaurants are Greek because we had a lot of Greek people that immigrated here, and they, for some reason, bought Coney Island restaurants with like hot dogs and Greek combo.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the things you can always get there is the lemon chicken rice soup. And it, again,
Mm.
it kind of thickens up over, the day, and it's very soothing. But
Mhm.
there's one that I make that I love, which years ago I was in a group where like weight loss, healthy eating, and we always shared recipes. And
Mm-hmm.
this woman said, like, it's called crock pot buffalo chicken chili. And she said, if
Mm.
you like chilies, which I love all of them, even white chilies, she said, you're gonna really, really love this one. And
Mm.
even if you're vegetarian, you just don't put the chicken in because there's a
Yeah.
in it,
Mhm.
enough flavor. And I like that I can just throw it in the crock pot and not think
Mm-hmm.
about it. So I
Mhm.
usually will take like chicken breasts, and just cut them up. So I'll tell you what's in it. So
Okay.
chicken breast, buffalo wing sauce, you have to like
Mhm.
a little spice,
Oh.
pinto beans, tomatoes and chilies,
Mhm.
corn, and then onions and celery, carrots, chicken broth, chili powder, garlic powder, or the real thing, and then some herbs. I'll send you a copy of it so you
Yeah,
guys.
good.
Cream
Oh,
cheese,
good.
you could either use the real or
Mm.
the fat. I think if you're
Ooh.
going with this recipe, you might as well just go real.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
then the secret ingredient is the dried Hidden Valley Ranch dressing.
Oh.
Oh.
So,
Oh.
and it was like so, so delicious. So I've made it over and over.
Mm.
Each time modifying a little bit again, depending on like what herbs and spices I have or how much of something, but it's that same basic recipe all the time. And I just love it.
That's great.
Mm.
Have you given it a fancy name like you did for the casseroles when your kids are little?
Like Jewel of the Sea and Cluck-a-doodle-doo.
Yeah.
Cluck-a-doodle-doo is the same recipe with chicken. And then Cowboy
Oh.
Roundup casserole was the same recipe with hot dogs chopped up.
Oh
Oh, and
my
then like
gosh. Oh
leftover.
my
Okay.
gosh. I love
No,
it.
I haven't, but I do need to think of personalizing that a little bit.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, yeah, because we'll put it in the blog post that
Oh,
when
okay.
this
Right.
podcast drops.
Yeah.
So we'll,
Okay.
yeah, give it that Beth spin. And I'm so glad you're going to send us the recipe because I
Well,
was
I
writing
actually have
frantically.
a name right now. I just thought
Okay.
of
Oh,
Okay.
because I
okay.
was just talking about all the spice and things. How about some like it hot chili?
Oh,
Ooh.
that's so good.
Okay.
Okay, Marilyn.
I
Right?
know exactly.
Yeah, I like it. Oh, well, and I think this might spark like a little recipe exchange, right?
It
And
would be a fun idea.
yeah,
Everybody's tell their favorite soup and why.
Yeah.
yeah,
What's so
I love
funny
that.
about the story that Vicky told about me making chili when we were on a trip is that my friend Eric says every time that I make the chili, he's like, "You're gonna have to teach me to make this chili." Says it every time, and I'm like, "Okay, well, I don't really have a recipe. It's
Right.
ground turkey, and I put in 3 cans of tomatoes and onions and garlic and chili powder." And I go, "Yeah, sure. It's just this, this, and this. I'll show you
Yeah.
anytime." But the fact is, he doesn't want me to teach him. He just wants me to continue to make the chili.
Or him.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
absolutely. Yes,
yeah,
I
yeah.
know.
But that's such a great point too about what you both were talking about with the gatherings,
Mhm.
and bringing
Yes,
people together that
yes,
and with your girls, Beth, and coming up with silly names, you're thinking, I'm stretching my grocery budget and it's
right.
Mhm.
something they've had before, but I'm gonna, put like a new veneer on top.
Make it fun.
But
Yeah.
all of that, yeah, but all of that, the making of it, the fun of it, the celebration aspects, the being together, that's love. Food is love.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It is.
Mhm.
Well, and
Yeah.
then I feel like that's kind of, and it ties in a lot with the bread making people again. Like it's kind
Mm.
of a
Mm-hmm.
caring, symbolic thing. You're physically like making this to share with someone.
Mhm.
You
Yeah.
don't usually eat your whole loaf of bread, although it's not to say I couldn't, but like you would generally share it. And soup you would
Mm-hmm.
generally share with
Mm-hmm.
people,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it kind of lends itself. Even the what post you're talking about with the when I went to the Himalayan restaurant, the good soup one. The story
Mm-hmm.
of that is I met this gentleman who was a Sherpa
Mhm.
who moved here, and he and his wife started this restaurant, and he talked about um, this is what they serve at base camp. So people are gathering there. It's
Mhm.
dangerous. They need to be full. It needs to be a hearty meal,
Mhm.
but yet
Yeah.
they've integrated a local recipe with all of their spices and herbs, and it's almost like a tradition for them before he would hike with them up the
Yeah.
mountain to have this meal together.
Well, the
Mm-hmm.
other thing that happens so much at base camp is that people get sick. I mean, they start coughing, and if they can't get rid of that cough,
Right.
then they crack ribs. I mean,
Oh, and
it's just so uncomfortable.
yeah.
So a little bit of soup, that warmth. I mean, it makes a difference.
And
Yeah.
maybe all of the spice too would
Hmm.
help
Oh.
with like clearing things. I don't know. When
Yeah,
you were
Yeah.
there, right, at
but
base camp
I
before,
did go to base camp. I
what's it
stayed for a
like?
night. It's, I mean, I'll talk about multicultural. It's a multicultural community,
Uh-huh.
tents from each group. It's one of the loudest places that you've ever heard because
Hmm.
the mountains are calving snow on a
Oh.
continuous
Yes.
basis.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there's, and it's not just Everest, it's Lhotse and Nuptse. I mean, you're in this big basin
Right.
of mountains, and it's shifting because it's on a glacier. So
Hmm.
even as you spend the night in a tent, the ground is shifting underneath you. So it is one of the most unique places I've ever been. Not only for the all the people that come together and the Sherpa, and they look like they're walking on air. Even at 17,000 feet, they just have this way of gliding
Oh.
through the
Amazing.
mountains. Anyway, it's a
Wow.
magical place.
Wow.
Oh.
I
So talk
like your
about a
observation.
gathering,
Hmm.
Yeah.
before you go on
Right.
this journey. Yeah.
Hmm.
Right. But the connection that you two just made, about the comfort of soup, kind of being the thing, right, that
Hmm.
base camp
Right.
would be known for. There's something there about the power of soup, right? And
Hmm.
Right.
when your description of just being in the environment, not worthy. Nope. Yeah.
So
I'll
I will
I'll
never
be
share.
far
I'll
away.
eat the soup, and that's my contribution.
It's
Exactly. I'll make the soup. I'll serve the soup. Right? I'll do all of that. But I'll wave to you and I'll wish you well. But just your description, Wynne, of like the ground,
hmm
no. Mm-mm,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
And it's
Well,
such such a personal commitment to do that and
Yeah. Yeah.
dangerous and,
mm,
there's a
yeah.
lot. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh
Well,
my
and that
gosh.
and if you think about all the things that make up teams, I mean, that's what's really
Right.
interesting about base camp is
Hmm.
there's a lot of ambition and ego
Yeah.
and different stories and situations. I mean, it is a melting pot and a soup in and of itself.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah. But in the end, everyone comes together around
Hmm.
the same circle, the fire pit,
Hmm.
the crock of soup or whatever. And
Right.
it is maybe kind of a good equalizer, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, think about back in Shakespeare, the witches stirring in the big pot,
Oh,
bubble,
right.
bubble, toil and trouble. Their soup was
Mhm.
probably not nourishing, but I think they used it as a sell. But it was that same thing. The witches in their
Hmm.
group were,
Hmm.
working
Yeah.
to make the soup of sorts. So
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
even
Might
I'm at
depend.
school, I would make it with my class who are like 3 and 4, and we
Yeah.
would read Stone Soup, and
Oh,
then
yes. Oh,
so
Hmm.
and they
so
all
good.
like taught them to use like real little knives, and they would cut the vegetables, and they all say like, I hate vegetables, I hate soup.
Yeah.
And their parents are like, they're never going to eat it. So anyway, they would go through the process. So I wanted them to see, and then I'd say like, okay, we're going to put the stone in, now we're going to put the carrots, all this, and
Hmm.
then again, a lot of naysayers about the soup, but usually if they make anything themselves, they'll eat
Hmm.
it quite often. So they went
Uh-huh.
up
True.
to recess, and then I took the stone out and I replaced it. I bought alphabet soup, the old can
Oh,
Yeah, yeah,
with all the veggies. And
yeah.
yeah.
so they came in and I said, look what this turned into. And they're all like, I'm not eating that. So we put it in little cups and I said, oh, this is delicious. You guys are such good cooks. And then like one brave soul tried it and said,
Oh.
oh, this is so good. And then of course, everyone said, oh, this is the best soup ever. We made this. So I told their parents and they said like they never eat soup. So other than like chicken and noodle usually.
Mhm.
So they said, well, what was your recipe? And I said, well, a stone. Then substitute Campbell's alphabet soup. They're
Yes. Oh my
on, and
gosh.
they
Yeah.
loved it. But it
That
was
is.
Oh my.
just the thought I wanted them to have the communal um,
Hmm.
activity of making
Hmm.
soup and
Yeah.
then tasting their cooking and to be a pleasant experience.
Yeah. Oh, that's so sweet. I
It was so
love that.
sweet and cute. Yeah.
Yeah, no, and the teaching moments, right,
Hmm.
that are all there. A little sleight of hand on your part, but for really good reasons, right?
Yeah.
That's the magic. That's the stuff.
Yes.
Right.
Oh my
And
gosh.
it's so fitting that we end on that community note because, again,
Yeah.
soup brings us together.
Yes. Yes. In many
Yeah.
ways. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
many ways. Beth, thanks for coming on and bringing in the new year with some hearty soup and laughter.
Absolutely. I'm sure I'll have some more soup posts, it looks like, in the future
Perfect.
based on my pattern. So,
So
I
good.
would love it. And
So
we
good.
look forward to posting your
all
some
right.
like it hot chili.
Yes. Oh my gosh, right? And to both of you, Happy New Year. I can't think of
You
a
too.
better way to greet the new year than spending time with both of you. So,
Okay.
All right. Take care.
yeah.
Ditto. Bye.
Bye.